Welcome everyone. We're really excited today to peel back the layers on something that, well, affects everyone. What does it actually mean to be in one of those highest paying countries?
Yeah, it's a term we hear a lot.
Exactly. And when you hear that phrase, what countries jump into your mind first? Our goal today is maybe challenge those initial thoughts a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a whole stack of sources here, articles, data, some research laying out global wages in different ways.
Lots to dig into.
Yeah, and by the end of this deep dive, hopefully you won't just know the rankings, but you'll get the forces behind them, cut through the noise, really understand this topic.
Definitely.
Might be some surprises along the way.
And that context piece is just so crucial, isn't it? It's easy to see a big number on a list and think, wow, that's the place to be.
Right.
But as we'll see, the real picture, it's way more complex, especially comparing completely different economies. Context really is everything here.
Okay, so let's jump right in then. Our first big piece from the sources. It's a list. Top 10 highest paying countries.
Okay.
Based on full-time average annual wage. But here's the important bit. It's adjusted for purchasing power parity. PPP.
Ah, yes, the PPP adjustment. Crucial.
Totally. So listen to this list, see if anything surprises you or if it's what you expected. Kicking off, number 1, Luxembourg,
All right.
around $89,800.
Wow, yeah, strong start.
Then Iceland, about $87,400. Switzerland, $83,300.
It's still very high numbers.
The U.S. comes in next, $80,100. Then Belgium, $73,200. Norway, $72,000. Austria, roughly $67,200. Interesting list, some familiar names, maybe a few surprises depending on what people expect.
So those are the numbers. But like we said, that phrase adjusted for purchasing power parity. Okay, what does that actually mean for someone just trying to understand these comparisons? Why is it such a big deal? Right. Well, PPP, it's basically like a cost of living balancer.
Yeah.
It tries to figure out how much your money actually buys in different places.
Okay.
Because, a dollar or a euro or whatever, it doesn't buy the same amount of stuff everywhere. Think about the price of, I don't know, a loaf of bread or rent in Zurich versus somewhere else.
Big difference.
Huge difference. So PPP adjusts those raw salary figures to give you a fairer idea of the real economic power behind the income. It answers the question, how much can you actually afford with that salary in that specific country?
So it's not just the number on the paycheck, it's what that number gets you day to day.
Exactly. It avoids comparing, say, a massive salary in a super expensive city where it all gets eaten up by rent versus a smaller salary somewhere cheaper where you might actually live better. Nominal wages, the raw numbers, they can look great. But PPP tells a truer story about living standards.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting looking at that list. The U.S. is high, sure, but it's below Luxembourg, Iceland, Switzerland.
Right.
Does that suggest the cost of living maybe eats into those U.S. salaries more in PPP terms compared to those top 3?
That's a really sharp observation. And yeah, it often points exactly to that. Things like housing, healthcare, childcare of major expenses in the U.S. can significantly reduce the effective purchasing power of even a high nominal salary compared to countries maybe like Luxembourg or Iceland, where those costs might be structured differently or subsidized more, even if their taxes seem high.
Okay, so PPP gives us one picture, the what can you actually buy picture. But get this, this is where our sources make it really interesting because they also give us a totally different top 10 list.
Ah, another angle. Let's hear it.
This one is the top 10 countries by average monthly net salary. So this is after tax, after social contributions. Basically, what actually lands in your bank account each month, your take-home pay.
Okay, the take-home number, very different metric. This should be interesting.
Definitely. Compare this one to the PPP list we just talked about.
Yeah.
Big shifts. Number 1 for net monthly salary, Switzerland, about $6,118.
So Switzerland moved up from number 3 on the PPP list to number 1 here. Interesting.
Yeah. Luxembourg is second, $5,318. Still high, but swapped places. Then number 3, Singapore, around $5,060.
Singapore. Okay, they weren't even on the first list, the PPP adjusted annual wage list.
Right. Big jump. United States is next at $4,233. Then Iceland, $4,120. Qatar shows up here, $3,937.
Qatar, too, another one not on the first list.
Then Denmark at $3,520. The United Arab Emirates, UAE, at $3,502.
UAE as well, wow.
Australia at $3,493, and the Netherlands rounds this one out at $3,488.
That is fascinating. The difference between those two lists is really quite something. Why do countries like Singapore or the UAE pop up so strongly on the net income list but not the PPP one?
Well, it often points directly to tax structures and social contribution systems. Countries like Singapore, Qatar, and the UAE are known for having very low or sometimes zero income
Mhm.
tax.
So even if the gross salary isn't the absolute highest globally, or even if the cost of living is quite high, which it definitely is in Singapore, for example, the lack of hefty income tax deductions means the net, the take-home amount, can be very substantial compared to countries with higher taxes, even if those other countries have higher gross pay or better PPP-adjusted pay.
So less taken out before it hits your pocket.
Exactly. It highlights this tension, right? Do you want the highest potential buying power, like the PPP list suggests, or do you want the highest actual cash in hand each month, like this net salary list shows? They're both high-paying, but in really different ways.
That's such a key takeaway. Raw salary isn't buying power, and buying power isn't necessarily take-home cash.
Precisely. You need to understand what metric you're looking at and what it truly represents for someone living and working there.
Okay, let's zoom in a bit then, using some of the regional details from our sources to really nail this down. Let's take the UAE, Dubai specifically, since it appeared on that net list.
Good example.
Sources say average salaries are around what, US $3,500 a month net? Which sounds pretty good, especially with no income tax.
Mm-hmm. That's the draw for many.
But, and this is a big but, in the source material living costs, particularly rent, are climbing fast, like really fast, while salary increases pretty flat looking into 2025.
Yeah, that's a critical point. That high net salary might be getting eroded pretty quickly by rising expenses. It raises questions about how sustainable that high income field is if costs keep outpacing wages.
Exactly. Your purchasing power could actually be shrinking even if the net pay stays the same. Now, what about Qatar? Also on the net list.
Right.
Gross average salaries there are mentioned around QA are 12,000 to 15,000 a month, which is like 3,300 to 4,100 US.
Okay, so the gross isn't wildly different from the UAE net average we just heard.
Kind of in the same ballpark. But the sources also note that certain high-end jobs, specialized professions, can pull in significantly more in gross terms.
Ah, so that suggests maybe a wider range of incomes perhaps, or at least very high earning potential at the top end for specific skills. Still benefits from low taxes, contributing to the net figure.
Makes sense. And then Singapore, always a fascinating case. It topped the net list after Switzerland and Luxembourg.
Yeah, number 3 on net.
Median gross monthly income for residents in 2024 was about $5,500. That's roughly US $4,074.
Okay, the gross median.
But then they talk about employer-inclusive averages, which factor in the employer's mandatory CPF contribution. That's their central provident fund, like a big Social Security and savings pot. That bumps the average up to around $6,113 a month.
Right, CPS is huge in Singapore. It covers retirement, health care, housing.
Exactly, but because both the employee and employer pay into it, and then there's income tax on top, the actual net take-home pay, the cash you see, ends up being around US $4,800 to $5,000 a month, typically.
So even though the gross, especially with employers' CPF, looks very high, and the net is still really strong, number 3 globally, remember, a significant chunk is going into that forced saving system, not into your immediate spending money.
It really shows how the system design shapes the outcome. High net pay, yes, but structured differently.
Absolutely. And tying these examples, UAE, Qatar, Singapore, back to the bigger picture, it just hammers home that point. You cannot understand high paying without looking at local costs, taxes, and things like mandatory contributions.
Yeah.
Gross salary alone is almost meaningless in isolation. Net salary is better, tells you what you get. PPP is maybe best for comparing living standards. But you need all the pieces.
And across the different ways of measuring for 2023, 2024, our sources consistently show Switzerland and Luxembourg right near the top, however you slice it.
That's true. They seem to combine high productivity, strong economies, and systems that result in both high PPP-adjusted wages and strong net take-home pay, even with significant social systems. It's a powerful combination.
So the real deep dive conclusion here seems to be high paying isn't one single thing. It's not a simple label.
Not at all.
It totally depends. Are you talking about raw buying power across borders? That's PPP. Are you talking about cash in your pocket after deductions? That's net salary. And you always have to layer on the local cost of living reality.
You've nailed it. Understanding that distinction is key.
So just to wrap up the main points from our sources today, we saw the big difference between that PPP-adjusted annual wage list, Luxembourg, Iceland, Swiss on top, and the average monthly net salary list, Swiss, Luxembourg, Singapore leading. Two different views of high paying.
Different lenses, different results.
And we saw how local factors are huge, think rising rents, possibly squeezing purchasing power in the UAE, even with tax-free income, or Singapore's mandatory CPF contributions affecting your immediate cash flow despite very high net pay overall.
Yeah, those specifics really matter on the ground.
It really brings the numbers to life.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Having gone through this, it kind of raises a question for you, doesn't it? Next time you read an article or hear a discussion about wealthy nations or economic success,
Yeah.
what new questions pop into your head now? What metrics will you look for beyond just that first headline number? Will you be asking, okay, but is that gross or net? Is it PPP adjusted? What's the cost of living really like there?
That's a fantastic question to leave people with. Really makes you think critically about the data we consume.
Hopefully.
Well, thank you for joining us. We really hope this gives you a much richer, more nuanced way to think about global income. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next one.